We are kicking the damn door down. The forbidden door, that is. Here on this episode of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund, joined by my partner in crime, J.O. How are you doing, man?
Hello, Sigdaddy. I'm here and ready to go.
All righty then. Yes, our conversation is giving our dream matches for AEW Forbidden Door, AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door, taking place June 26th at the United Center in Chicago. We're going to give our dream matches, 3 or 4 of those, coming up here in a few moments, but wanted to get into some news and notes from this past week as we have had a little bit of news. WWE releases, once again, this time from NXT 2.0. Fightful Select reported 10 names, had been released last week from NXT's NXT 2.0, including Paige Prinzivali, I screwed up that name horribly, Sahana George, Draco Anthony, Harlan, also known as Parker Boudreaux, a.k.a. the guy that was tabbed as the next Brock Lesnar, Persia Parada, who was just featured on television recently, Raylan Devine, Mila Milani, and Dexter Loomis, one of the last few remaining people from the Triple H era, as well as longtime NXT star Dakota Kai and Malcolm Bivens.
I mean, it's just unfortunate. Again, you know, anytime you hear about these WWE releases, my heart goes out to everyone that's been released. And it's just another sign that WWE gets all these talented wrestlers and they just don't know what to do with them.
And a lot of these people are young, I'm assuming. Like, well, Loomis, he's been around for a while. He's been around at least 2 or 3 years. Dakota Kai has been there 5 or 6 at least.
Right, I was going to say, out of all of those, the one that immediately jumped out to me was Dakota Kai.
This brings up an interesting issue with WWE in their developmental territory now that they know as 2.0. Where are the guys and gals that are going to help elevate these young talents? Because a lot of these wrestlers are green, like very, very green. Some of them have experience, but they're young. Some of them have wrestling experience. A lot of them don't coming in.
Right.
If I'm correct, I could be completely wrong on that. But like the guys that were in Triple H's NXT are pretty much guys and women in Triple H's NXT are completely gone now. They're either on the main roster, released, or working somewhere else.
I mean, yeah, if you're talking about what NXT was supposed to be, a developmental for these young superstars, these young wrestlers, every time they release, I mean, to me, it might even be worse if it's coming from NXT that they're being released. It's just then you're just dropping the ball on all these wrestlers. I mean, yeah, I know it's not a guarantee that if you make it to NXT that, you know, it'll work out, but it's just still so disheartening to hear about.
But it's the development. My issue is the development, because how are these suit wrestlers going to develop when they don't have any experienced wrestlers to work with? They're pretty much gone already. There's like a few left from Triple H's NXT, including one I'm about to mention here in a minute.
That is true. I mean, they still have with the rebrand, did their trainers change? Like their coaches? Did any of that change, or was it just like a rebrand?
It was literally, they changed it was just a rebrand. But they literally took away pretty much any wrestler, most of the wrestlers that have experience on that show. It was just a bunch of green as grass talent, mostly. Some of them, they're thriving. Others are struggling quite a bit, and they're not ready for TV, from what I've gathered on social media.
I mean, maybe that's part of the reason they're releasing them. You know, they're just not where they need to be, but that's what they're there for, is for WWE to help them get them to where they have to be.
And apparently that was the case with Boudreaux. He was not progressing like they thought he should quick enough. Which is he was a former football player at Central Florida.
Man, I mean, it's sad to hear. It's heartbreaking.
And one of those wrestlers one of the few wrestlers that have experience that are still on the NXT roster is Roderick Strong, former member of the Undisputed Era. He, according to Fightful Select, had recently asked for his release from WWE, and he was not granted it. Go figure.
I mean, why would you deny a request for release? Then in that situation, you're just keeping someone who doesn't want to be there. How do you think that's going to affect their work?
And he doesn't.
Like
that's money off their payroll. Think about that.
You were talking about he was one of the last few people there. Maybe this played a big part of it. He sees what WWE is doing to these young talents and just doesn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Well, if their direction with NXT is he's not really involved a ton in it. He's part of that Diamond Mine group, but the guy that led him, which was Malcolm Bivens, he's gone, and that guy's social media game was fire. Is fire. He was one of the funniest dudes on social media. It took him, apparently, I didn't watch NXT enough to get a grasp, but the Sweet Chinwag podcast, I was listening to a little bit of their stuff from today. They said that Bivens hadn't been used on TV hardly for 2 years, and he'd been there for 2 years. And the dude's super entertaining. Like, he is one of the most entertaining guys I've seen. Like, just based off his social media.
And WWE dropping the ball on super talented superstars that they have.
There was a picture of him with a towel. The John Cena never give up towel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had now. You should never give it. It's like never give up on the towel. But he flipped it the other round. He said, "Nah, you should."
See, that's funny.
And there was a video with him. It was a TikTok, I think, early on. It was Dakota Kai. She was going to do they were acting like Dakota. Remember that bus it trend or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So she did. It's like my butt getting big. My butt getting big. And she drops down. It's like, oh, and then Bivens shows up. Dakota Kai drops down, then Bivens shows up. It's like, oh, you know what we're doing? We're watching Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery. Come on. With Malcolm Bivens. Come on. It was hilarious. Dude was just so entertaining. But yeah. And what NXT is doing right now. So Dolph Ziggler got brought in briefly.
Mm-hmm.
They did that. They're doing the same thing with Natalia. It's to help help these young talents, but I'm like, for that to work, that's not going to work long term. Just let's bring somebody from the main roster back down here all the time. Everyone's like just rotate through people. It's not going to help in the long run.
I mean, I think I'd say this is probably what they tried doing with Finn Balor, and I think that worked pretty well.
He's doing nothing now.
Yeah.
He was full time on NXT though. That's the thing though. When he got sent back, he was full time NXT. He wasn't on the main roster at all.
Right, but I still think that's one of the things that they were probably thinking of when Finn Balor went back to NXT was help out some of these younger guys with some of the feuds they put them in, help them look good.
The thing, that's partially it. But the thing is, what they've been doing, the trend is send them there for like a month or two, then leave. There's nothing long term in the plans.
Right.
It's just sending a main roster person there for a month or so or two, and then bring him back. That's not going to work long term. You've got to have experienced people there, like, to help in matches. Like it's because there was a match. I don't remember what her name was, but there's Nikita Lyons, who has potential. Has plenty of potential, but they I forget what the name was, Lash something. I can't. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but it looked rough because they both are very green. It was not. It was a TV match too.
Ooh.
And the way people anymore, like now that Bruce and Vince are booking it, it's a big problem. That because they're starting to over sexualize stuff once again. Because Ember Moon went on Chris Van Vliet's podcast and was talking about how they had this dumb meeting about everyone having to have their butts out pretty much. Or I mean, it was not exactly that, but wearing booty shorts and all this. And she was like, I'm not about that. And she got released. Ember Moon did eventually. But it was the sexualization of the women once again in WWE.
Nice.
Which is going back on what the women's evolution was even about.
So ever since that rebrand and they stopped letting Triple H take control of that brand, it hasn't been the same.
But you can see it with the sexual overtones or undertones, whatever you want to say with that, because the way that women are dressed and stuff on the shows, you can kind of tell. But
yeah,
Ember Moon was not comfortable with it. It's like she made a good point. Not everyone can be Mandy Rose.
Yeah, and if you don't want to, you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they were telling him to do.
Yeah.
Is to wear all this stuff. And it's like, they have to wear all this stuff. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's not okay.
But off the NXT stuff, we're just a couple little more news and notes. Happy 50th birthday to The Rock, the great one. Still jacked as ever. And happy birthday to the gem of WWE commentary, Pat McAfee, as well.
Few solid birthdays.
Yeah, definitely. Pat McAfee 1-0 at WrestleMania, the WrestleMania GOAT. Well, actually not 1-0. He's not 1-0 anymore. He's 1-1 because he lost to Vince in the same night.
I was going to say, don't forget the Vince McMahon match. I say match with air quotes.
Mm-hmm. Also coming up this weekend, WrestleMania Backlash. Plenty of stuff on that show coming up. Rematches between Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, as well as Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey in an I Quit match. Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. They turned that from the unification match to a 6-man tag with Drew McIntyre and RK Bro taking on the Bloodline. AJ Styles versus Edge, Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss, and Bobby Lashley versus Omos. That's what's confirmed so far at this point.
What do you think? Do you think it'd be better or worse than the WrestleMania matches?
I expect better, but we'll see. We'll see about that. And it's time. We've wasted enough time. It's time to get to the topic of discussion, AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door. Let's get into this. Our matches we want to see, our dream matches we want to see at this show coming up on June 26th. Jo, I will let you kick things off.
So with me, not the biggest New Japan fan. It's not I don't have anything against this. Just I don't know how to 100% watch New Japan, to be completely honest. Only time I went out of my way to go watch a New Japan pay-per-view was way back when in Wrestle Kingdom 12, and that was because I found out Jericho was going to be on it, and I really only wanted to watch that match, but I figured, hey, might as well just watch the entire pay-per-view, and it blew away. It was insane.
Work rate, man.
So with mine, I'll start off with, I think would be a pretty interesting storyline. Bullet Club versus the Elite.
Okay, yeah. I have that. We can knock out two birds with one stone on that, because I have Bullet Club versus Undisputed Elite too, which is they just became that this past week, which that could be a 10-man tag. Could be pretty
Because
exciting.
there's a story. Yeah, there's a storyline written in there already with the Young Bucks, and I guess you could even include Kenny Omega, who may not be performing that night. Former members of the Bullet Club.
Yeah, and it sounds like Omega is not going to be there because he's apparently still nursing like a hernia surgery. So that's likely not going to happen because hernia surgeries are pretty rough. So you got to recover for a while. Wishing Kenny Omega nothing but the best. We've missed him. It's been too long. He's been gone for 7 months now, out for 7 months, but he's been working. He worked hurt for quite a while before he lost the AEW World Title. But yeah, that match kind of writes itself. You could have original members in there: Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson. I was thinking about 10-man tag with that, maybe. But yeah, that story writes itself. And then they're teasing. Cole's kind of taken over the group pretty much. The Elite turned it into the Undisputed Elite. What his picture of it is. They had a moment of unity last week on I think Rampage or Dynamite, one of the two. I can't remember. But yeah, that match writes itself. We're gonna go. I forgot to mention this beforehand. Bless you. I forgot beforehand. We were gonna go about 3 or 4 matches on here. I'll lead off with my match. So we've knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone already. Jo.
Efficient. I like it.
Efficiency. Well, I think this is where the similarities will end with us. So my next match is CM Punk versus Kenta. The battle of the GTS.
See, I like that. That makes sense. It's a nice little, because the problem with these crossover matches is there's, storytelling is a big part of professional wrestling, but with these crossover pay-per-views, you really don't have a whole lot of time to develop storylines like with something like this, I think. Even with the example we gave, it's because there's just so much history already there. But I think even with the Battle of the GTS is a pretty decent story or angle that you could put towards this match. So I respect it.
And I think Kenta's wanted this match for quite a while now. If I'm correct, I think Kent has wanted this match for quite a while, which I understandably so.
Yeah,
that's a built-in story already. So these are good, like little spots where we can work stuff in there.
So you said CM Punk versus Kenta. I'll do my 2 birds 1 stone. Is my favorite wrestler from watching New Japan, and the one that I try to follow is Will Ospreay. I think it's a dope character. I love his wrestling style, the high flying. And I had him originally versus CM Punk. And mostly because that's something both of them have even expressed wanting, because both CM Punk and Will Ospreay have talked about it, and Will Ospreay even called out CM Punk at a New Japan Pro Wrestling press conference.
Hey, you got a challenge. You want the goat, one of the goats. You gotta ask for it. Now that'd be a certainly interesting stylistically. Stylistically, that would be an interesting match because Ospreay's changed up his style a little bit since he's went to kind of turned into a heavyweight instead of a junior. And he's won the world championship. It'd be certainly interesting to see the style, how they mesh in that match.
Right. So I think, CM Punk's a vet. I think he has enough experience under his belt where he knows what he has to do to make his style work with Will Ospreay.
All right. Up next, I'll go with my second one. Bryan Danielson versus Kazuchika Okada. Two of the best wrestlers. One of them still one of the best wrestlers. Actually, both of them are up there in the best wrestlers of today. Still.
Might have just got a little chill there for me. That's the definition of a dream match right there.
Gosh, I might cry if that happens.
because you break it down, just two people who are great at wrestling, and we'll see who's better.
That's all you can ask for. Really. The match, you don't even have that match. You don't even need a story. You don't need a story because it's who's the best. That's it. That's all you need. Who's the best?
And you took the words right out of my mouth, even though I just said the hard part about a pay-per-view like this is making storylines. But if you can get talent like this in a match, you don't need a storyline. You just let the wrestling do the story.
And these guys are fantastic storytellers, so you don't need to really they don't need a ton of backstory. It's pretty much like we just said. It writes itself pretty much for that one. Your next match, Jo.
So I'm going to do a little double dipping on my end and your end, and my other one was actually Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson. Because, like we just said, Bryan Danielson, great wrestling. Same thing with Will Ospreay. I think the whole who can do this better fits both of our matches.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. It's like there's so many different options here. So many. Like people will pick their own dream match. You can make up just a whole entire 10-match card. I had a 10-match card pretty much set up for this, but we just decided to go with 3 or 4 here, and yeah, that's a really good one as well. Ospreay versus gosh dang it, Danielson. Yeah, that's another one that you'd like to see at some point in time. Oh my gosh, like it's so hard to narrow it down, but it's a lot of fun to talk about. And so I'm going to pick one more match. I have two. I am in flux right now because I am picking between 2 matches that I really want to see. But I'm having a hard time choosing.
You can do it, Sigdaddy. I believe in you.
Do 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 do. All right, I got my choice. 2 big meaty men bumping meat, as Big E would like to say. Jeff freaking Cobb versus Keith Lee.
They might have to reinforce the ring for that one.
There will be an earthquake when that match happens. If that match happens, that match I think needs to happen because you want a card with a bunch of different different flavors of ice cream, as you'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
You want Spot Fest. You want technical wrestling. You want 2 big guys just going at it. That one's the match. Guys. Jeff Cobb and Keith Lee. And these guys are not just like big guys that are just big and will hit you hard. These guys, like you said, Jo, can fly around the ring at like ridiculous sizes because Keith Lee's over 300 pounds. Jeff Cobb's probably dang near 300 pounds. And these guys are doing moonsaults and topes and all this crap. It would be an insane match. May not be a 5-star match, but man, it would be a fun as hell match to watch.
Book it, Tony.
Book it, Tony. If you listen to this show, Tony, which I 100% doubt you would ever listen to this show, when the 0.0000001% chance you'd be listening, please book Jeff Cobb and Keith Lee. I beg you. The wrestling gods would thank you. I would thank you personally. I would give you a hug if I ever saw you in person, which I doubt I'd ever will. But yes, make Keith Lee, Jeff Cobb happen at Forbidden Door.
All right, so for my one more match, I guess it'll be one more, and then an honorable mention was, as I was making this, I initially had Kenny Omega versus Kota Ibushi again, even though it's a dream match, but it'd be awesome to see them go at it again. But with Kenny, being hurt, not very likely, so I really didn't want to put my spot for that. I had Hangman Alan Page versus Jay White.
That'd be good. That'd be
Glad
good.
you think that's it.
Man. Gosh, I have so many honorable mentions too on here. So many. I'm just going to throw a few of them out. If that's okay with you,
Please
J.O.
do.
Okay.
Please do.
So Eddie Kingston versus Minoru Suzuki. So a technical matchup, Lee Moriarty versus Zack Sabre Jr. High flying matchup, 3-way, Taiji Ishimori, Pac, and Ray Phoenix.
Oh my God, you're talking about a spot fest.
That would bang so hard, though, man.
That'd
it would.
That would be so good. I would be 100% down for that.
And then, okay, comedy match. You got to throw a little bit of comedy in there. So here's another honorable mention. Toru Yano versus Orange Cassidy versus Danhausen versus Colt Cabana. Actually, the funny thing with the story here, there is a story. Actually, the funny thing is all 4 of these guys have worked together at one point as a tag team. So Yano and Colt Cabana have been a tag team in New Japan. Orange Cassidy and Danhausen, I'm pretty sure, have been a tag team on the Indies at some point.
So there's history there too, just like with the Bullet Club and versus the Elite dream match. It writes itself.
I didn't even when I made that matchup, I was just doing it for pure comedy purposes. That was it. It was pure comedy. But then I realized, oh my gosh, there was actually a story built into this if I think about it.
There you go.
There you go. That's one match you could book. And then I had one last honorable mention, which was I couldn't go without adding the AEW World Champion in here. Hangman Adam Page versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace of New Japan. And he's the current U.S. champion, if I'm right, in New Japan. It's the IWGP U.S. champion, I think. But,
see, I didn't even think about it that way. Do you think it will just be a champion versus champion kind of match?
I don't think they should put titles on the line here. I don't think they need to put titles on the line.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think they would either, but I was more so talking just have the champions wrestle each other. Like for their matching championships, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I don't like that idea necessarily because some guys going to come out looking inferior in the process. I know there's ways around that, but I don't really want to see it like that.
Yeah, we don't want every match to end in a double count out or a DQ or an interference. Draw. Yeah.
Some draws are okay. A draw every once in a while is cool, but it needs to be something special. I don't know. I wouldn't even want it for Okada Danielson, to be honest.
I think you'd be okay with that one.
I would be okay with that one because those guys are probably on the same level.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of
I was okay with the Danielson Omega one. I know a lot of people really weren't, but it makes sense. Keep both of them looking strong.
They did that with Page and Danielson at the beginning too. Their first match, it went to an hour time limit draw.
Jeez, but no, I agree. They can't all end like that, and if it happens too much, it just takes away the impact of when it does happen.
And this show needs to in order for this show to be as good as it possibly can, we need finishes. Actually, we do need finishes. Yes. We need to, and it needs to be even booking here. Even booking. So New Japan guys need to go over about the same amount of times as AEW guys.
And that's a tough part on the bookers end because bookend.
Booker T. I don't like his takes though.
Yeah. who how do you balance that? How do you come up with, who takes the pin, who goes over on these like two separate, companies?
I think the presidents of each company have to work together in order to make that decision and determination.
Yeah. Don't want to be them.
I wouldn't want to be in their situation because that's very difficult to book. This show happens like literally a month after Double or Nothing. So there's not a lot of time in between TV to get things set up. But like if they do some of these matches, the story's already in place for some of them.
Oh yeah.
Like we previously mentioned.
And while that, definitely helps, it's like with what you said before with a few years, sometimes we don't want a story or need a story, I should say. It's put your best guys against their best guys and let's see what happens.
Like, yeah, they need to do as many of these possible like story in place matches as possible in order to make this show work. And they can do little video vignettes to help further the story too.
All right, with what you said there, I wanted to at least try to ask you this question. Out of all of yours, even though these are dream matches, if you had a bet, what's the most realistic one you think would happen out of all of yours?
Well, the Bullet Club Undisputed Elite's definitely going to happen.
Yeah. For me, it'd be either that one or the Will Ospreay versus CM Punk. And that's really just because they both want to do it. So with this happening, they might have just has like, hey, we already said this. Can we just do this here?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. There's so many options with Punk. There's just a lot of options with CM Punk. Because you could go one way, you could go Kenta, you could go Tanahashi, because Tanahashi wants to face Punk. You can go Ospreay too as well. There's so many options with CM Punk. They could literally just book a show with CM Punk dream matches against whoever.
I say make it a triple threat or a fatal four-way. I'd be down for that too.
I don't know. There's too many moving parts with that one. I'd like to see a singles one-on-one man-on-man match.
I was going to say, I hope they don't try to please everyone and do just a bunch of tag matches with everyone.
I don't need to see that. I don't need to see, honestly, AEW thrives on tag team wrestling. That's what they pride themselves on. But I don't need to see a lot of tag team matches on this show. I don't. I need to see singles matches and maybe a triple threat or two. Maybe a fatal four-way in there because I want that comedy match to happen. But
so yeah, I think single matches is the way to go for this one.
Because some of these matches, I'm just throwing out like spitballing with the Ishimori, Pac, and Ray Phoenix match because I just like, all right, this could be just a spot fest of all spot fests. But no, it's going to be fun though. We'll see what the development is in the coming weeks after. So once Double or Nothing happens at the end of this month, we'll get some more ideas on what will happen with AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door on June 26th. And it should be very, very, very fun show, to say the least. So, JL, thank you for coming along on this ride with me once again. Lots of fun talking about kind of fantasy booking this show, picking some of our dream matches, not booking the entire card, but picking out some matches that we'd like to see.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. So, JL, where can everyone find you?
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Jeremy Ordas, all lowercase.
All righty. Find Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Sigdaddy Wrestle and on Instagram at sigdaddy.wrestle. Make sure to tune in next week to hear our reaction. We will be doing a reaction to WrestleMania Backlash, our thoughts on the show from this coming Sunday. We'll let you know about those next week, next time, here on Sig Daddy's Wrestling Show. That's J.O. I'm Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund saying thank you all for listening and so long, everybody.